Dongeng Chapter 5. Saturday dawn. Dongeng Chapter 5. Saturday dawned dark and gloomy. Just past 7 a.m., Sarah paced the room, waiting for Helmi to arrive. She heard shuffling outside and swung the door open just as he was raising his hand to knock. "So, we're all ready?" A bright voice said out of nowhere, making both of them jump. She turned to see that Gajra had just materialized on the couch. "You're Gajra," Helmi said flatly, as he slipped off his shoes and walked into the living room. "At your service, young man," Helmi bin Rashid. "How did—" "I know everything about you, young man." Helmi turned to Sarah. "You told him about me?" Sarah looked perplexed. "No, I just mentioned that you'd be here to make sure I'm okay. I do know how to do research, even if I am a mystical being. You Googled me?" The bird coughed nervously. "I read your diary." "How the hell did you—" "You forget, I am mystical. And you are away at work all day. Don't worry, I will keep your secrets. For now." Helmi clenched his teeth. "Thank you, I suppose. Anyway, here he is, so we should be on our way." Gajra nodded at Sarah. She stepped towards him and was about to take his wing when Helmi stopped them. "Wait, how do I contact you?" Gajra looked at him scathingly. "Fine." He ruffled his wings, turned his head, and pulled out a loose feather from his plumage. Helmi reached out to take the glinting feather from Gajra's beak. "Keep it safe, young man, and don't call me for no reason." "What do I do with this?" Gajra clicked his beak. "If you need me, burn it. I'll come to you." Helmi nodded. "Now, if we can leave." He grasped her hand, squeezing it once. "Sarah, stay safe." Sarah watched Helmi's face as the room and him faded away. She wasn't sure why he looked so depressed. "You like him, do you not?" Gajra said, interrupting her thoughts. "What?" "You think he would make a good mate?" Sarah laughed. "He would, but it would never work." "Why not? Are you not compatible? He seems to care very much for you." Sarah shrugged, more interested in watching how her apartment had faded and how a verdant forest was coming into view. "Do you not think so?" Gajra pressed. "He's very nice, Gajra," Sarah said, "but our outlook on life is far too different, as are our faiths." "Faith?" "Religion. Beliefs. The thing that makes wars." "Ah, yes, but people have resolved that." She smiled wryly. "Maybe, but not in our country. Not in a good way, at least. Let's not talk about that. Tell me, where am I?" Gajra glanced piercingly at her, but did not press the issue. He cleared his throat. "You are now in Alam Dongen." "Alam Dongen?" she repeated under her breath. "World? Realm of fairy tales?" "Yes, this is where all our Kisah Dongen have been birthed and nurtured and cherished." "Shall we?" "Shall we what?" "Take a walk through this world, of course. If you will let go." "Oh, yes, of course." She released her grip on Gajra's wing, realizing for the first time how tightly she'd been clinging to it. Gajra flexed his wings and took to the air. He hovered at eye level, somewhat ahead of her to the right. "Our realm has many beautiful creatures, some similar to the Western fairy tale creatures that you are used to. Of course, we do have our differences. Some are larger differences, some are merely cosmetic, and some, of course, are starting to be taken over by the larger, louder narratives of the West." He turned to face Sarah, as if wanting to see if she was following. She nodded. "We have so many frightening creatures that have not yet been sanitized and cleaned up for the children's consumption. The youth of today love the vampires of the West because their danger has been romanticized. But none will look on the Pontianak without fear. Yet they are in most respects almost the same. They emerge at night and they drink blood. One is loved, one is hated. Why?" Sarah glanced around nervously. "But children like fear, do they not? They like horror stories and things that make them shiver." Well, not me, Sarah replied. Once fear was necessary. They'd been walking for some time in the rainforest, only the sounds surrounding them, crawling and tweeting. They'd been walking for some time in the rainforest. The only sounds surrounding them, the crawling and tweeting of various birds, the rustle of the undergrowth as unseen animals passed by, and the crunching of Sarah's feet on the path. They stopped at a place that seemed vaguely similar to Sarah. Have I been here before? When? She stopped, unable to articulate her words. The fear was so strong in her. Yes, this is the Orang Bunyan stronghold. You will see them soon. Unless you wish? No, I'll face them, Sarah said resolutely, even if her face felt pale and drawn. They'll be bringing others of their kind? Their kind? Gajah seemed to think about it for a while before answering her. The other Orang Halus, fairy folk of the realm. Did you think they were the only ones? The bird cocked his head to one side, as if challenging her. No, I don't know. Well, you see them. They're coming now. The Orang Bunyan you have met? The hidden people, they called themselves. Sarah recognized the Raja and Permaisuri of the Bunyans and passed, exchanging cold nods. These are the Orang Ketot, the dwarves. I think you might compare them to... These are the Orang Ketot, dwarves. I think you might compare them to. Gajah started to name each of the beings that were congregating in the wide clearing. Orang Kanit, magical beings. The ground began to shake as Sarah grabbed onto a tree to steady herself, glancing wildly. A dark shadow fell upon them, and 4 feet appeared at the edge of the clearing. Ah, those would be the Gersi. They really are giants, she said in astonishment. More rumbling followed, and a smaller giant passed by. Sarah glanced at them. This is a Gadambi, a different kind of giant. Gajah seemed to find some difficulty in explaining. Well, she can turn things to stone. Like Medusa? Gajah made a gesture, something like a shrug. No idea what that is. He turned to the Raja Banyan and said, Shall we start then? We wait for one more, the Raja replied. The Bidadari will come for the need to relate our worlds. The Bidadari will come for the need to relate our words to the Duyong, who cannot survive here. Sarah murmured to herself, Duyong? She knew what those were. They were mermaids. But Bidadari? Weren't those angels? But Raja Bunyan was calling them to court now. She couldn't help comparing him to the fairy queen before wondering why there wasn't a fairy king. Had there ever been a fairy king? The law hadn't been very clear on that. There might have been something in Shakespeare, but definitely Titania got more publicity than any of her supposed husbands. The Raja spoke in a measured, mellifluous voice, much like the first time she met him, and now, in the presence of so many other beings, Sarah wondered why she had been so afraid of him then. Being kidnapped had possibly been a major factor, but his charm was also evident. Gajah nudged her. What? You're falling for his spell. She shook her head to clear her mind. He was talking about the need to save the land from dying, from fading, and she could see that all the other creatures were nodding in agreement. What would happen if she said no, she wondered. Would they all turn against her? And now they were all turning to her, looking expectantly. Go on, say your piece, Gajah urged. What if I don't know what to say? Trust your heart. Sarah personally hated that phrase. What did one mean, trust your heart? She didn't trust her heart. Her heart was perfectly capable of wanting 2 conflicting things at the same time. It was perfectly alright with loving and hating the same thing as well. This was not a time to trust her heart. It was a time to... She wasn't very sure. but they were waiting for a response, so she had to think of something to say. She rose to her feet. Hi. Well, to be honest, what you ask of me is very difficult. I have to admit that. Well, there is no other way to put it. I am an Anglophile. I love all things British. The West has a hold of my heart. But I think I feel you too. What you are, who you aspire to be, the dangers. I can't say it hasn't happened in the West. Their stories have been subverted and changed and remolded. And, well, if you don't take hold of your own narrative, then that's what's going to happen to you, and yours too. Which is why I say I'm not the best advocate for you. I don't know enough about you or what you stand for. I don't know anything of where you came from or why you came to be. What will happen if I change your stories? What will happen if I misrepresent you? It's too difficult. I don't want to bear the burden. I grew up on Enid Blyton. I grew up on Enid Blyton, Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis. I didn't grow up with your Pelingo Lara and your folk tales and your myths. I do not believe I can do you justice. The crowd started to murmur among themselves. Sarah shook her head, tears in her eyes. I thought about this very long and very hard. Helmi thinks I'm crazy. And you know what? I probably am. Maybe you should ask him to do this, Raja Bunyan. He's the one who knows of you, who knows without being told why I should fear you and why I should not. He wouldn't have been afraid of you as I was when you took me here, because he would have known who you were. He wouldn't fall for your charms because he knows of your wily ways. But maybe that is why we need you, a large bird said, gently as it came to land beside Gaja. The blue bird nodded to his comrade. Jentayu, Gaja acknowledged in return. Jentayu turned his gaze back to Sarah. Because we need something to help us with the times before we die in obscurity. I can't. It's not my burden to bear. And so you will let us die? Gaja's voice was cold, cutting. It would be an appropriation for me to dare take your voices, she said in a small voice. There it was at last. Her last niggling doubt. She didn't want them to die. Gaja scoffed. We are not Americans to be worried about such things. But there are others who will be, who might be. But would you rather die together than at least to save... But would you rather die altogether than at least... But would you rather die altogether than to at least battle for survival? Sarah didn't like that militaristic overtones. Sarah didn't like the militaristic undertones. She didn't like this discomfort in her heart. She didn't like where she was going, and if this was going to be her fault if the world died, when she had never any stake in it at all. Jentayu spoke then, feeling like a voice of reason. You are the child of Malaysia too, Sarah. Your stake in them is the stake of all Malaysians, ensuring that you have the legacy to carry on, that you will not be whitewashed and your voice is silenced. There was a bitterness in her voice as Sarah replies. But I am whitewashed. Then take this as a redemption. Accelerando. The house is quiet. His son and daughter-in-law have gone out somewhere. He does not know where, does not ask. They are adults. They are adults after all, and he is merely a visitor, and the boy is most likely still asleep. He lingers at the dining table, still sipping at his cooling coffee when the front door opens and the boy walks in. Morning, Tuk, the boy mumbles. He looks restlessly. Morning, Tuk, the boy mumbles. He looks restless, angsty. Where did you go so early in the morning? The boy sighs and slides into a chair, leaning slumped over the table. What if she doesn't come back? Fear gripped his heart. Why wouldn't she? He's not sure if she refers to the girl that his grandson has been seeing, or if it is someone else. If that someone is trying to seduce him, the enemy of my enemy. I don't trust him. Him? He cannot read the boy's mind, but it's clear that he's jumping from thought to thought, sowing marbles in their houses, calculating with each click who will end up with most seeds in the store, who he is playing against and what's at stake. You should never trust Putra Arya. He speaks from bitter experience. Not Putra now, Raja. He doesn't correct his mistake. Who? But the boy doesn't wait for him to explain. Gajra, can I trust Gajra? He asks, looking up with an expression that is once desperation and fear and worry and calculation. He wonders what his grandson has become, even as he nods once. Gajra can be trusted. The kings of old, the kings of men of old, had trusted him. Gajra is honorable, even in his pride and foolhardiness. Is said to be honorable, even to the point of death. If Gajra is on their side, at least he knows truth will be upheld. Where is she? He asked, although he already knows the answer. Alam Dongen. This morning I went to see her off. Pain and sorrow pierces his heart. He doesn't speak of it, and the boy, caught up in his own misery, doesn't ask. So interesting. I want to know more. Next chapter coming soon. These are rice straws, and it's been 2 hours and 10 minutes. The straws are doing well. Still holding their straw shape. Still good.